Dear students, in the last class, we had started with applications of Gauss law, wherein we had derived expression for electric field at a point due to a charged, long, straight, infinite wire, and we had derived that E is given by 1 by 2 pi epsilon naught into lambda by R, where lambda represents what is called as the linear charge density. As a continued part, we will today discuss about the second application of Gauss law as mentioned in your syllabus, that is electric field due to an infinite charged plane sheet. Electric field due to an infinite charged plane sheet. So, in this discussion, again we will consider plane sheet which is positively charged like this. I will think of a plane sheet like this. See, this is called as an infinite sheet because its thickness is very small compared to its area of cross section. So, let us say it's a positively charged plane sheet. It is positively charged on both sides. Okay. Now, we will consider some point here at some distance r from this plane sheet. Let us say this distance is equal to r. Here you have the reference point. So you know that the electric field will be there even at point P due to this charged plane sheet. Now our interest is to derive an expression for electric intensity at point P due to this charged infinite plane sheet. So the surface density of this charged plane sheet P sigma. If you remember, while discussing about continuous charge distribution, we had learnt about three types of charge densities: linear charge density, surface charge density, and volume charge density. So this is a plane sheet, hence we will consider surface charge density, wherein the charges will be distributed over the surface of the sheet. The surface density is sigma, and you must be remembering that sigma is given by charge by area. Now, in order to derive an expression for the electric field at point P, I have to assume a Gaussian surface. A Gaussian surface is one to which Gauss law is applicable. So, I will assume a Gaussian surface. Again, this is a cylinder. So, the length of the cylinder is 2r. The length of the cylinder is 2r. It is extended on both sides of the plate, and remember here that when you think of the electric intensity, see that electric intensity due to the plate will be such that at the end caps, here you have two end caps. If I call this as 1 and 2, at the two end caps, the direction of the electric field will be along the normal to the surface. ds is the unit vector here, along the normal to the surface. So even here also the electric field is along the normal to the surface. That means the angle between the electric field and the normal to the surface at the end caps will be 0. Whereas and in the cylindrical part, see, this is the direction of the unit vector here. The angle between the direction of the electric field and the unit vector will be equal to 90 degree. So due to the cylindrical part, it is theta is 90 degree, whereas at the end caps it is theta is 0 degree. What is theta here? The angle between the direction of the electric field and the normal to the surface. So now the total electric flux is given by the electric flux, the sum of the electric flux due to the end caps and also due to the cylindrical part. So I may write it as, see, due to the end caps, that is due to these two parts, phi is given by phi 1 plus phi 2, which is E into ds, vector E dot ds plus vector E dot ds. But you know that it is E cos theta into ds, E cos theta into ds. We shall assume the area of each end cap is equal to A. So in that case, theta for end caps is 0 here, 0 degree. Since theta is 0, cos 0 is 1. So this will be equal to E into A plus E into A, which is 2 times E into A. Whereas due to cylindrical part, here theta will be equal to 90 degree as indicated here, the direction between the electric field and the normal to the surface. So theta will be 90 degree, and since cos 90 is 0, the flux will be 0. Therefore, the total electric flux will be equal to 2 times E into A. That is due to the end caps. Also, from Gauss law, we know that electric flux is also equal to 1 by epsilon naught times sigma q. But we know that q is equal to sigma into A. Therefore, phi is equal to sigma into A by epsilon naught. Let this be equation 1 and this be equation 2. Comparing 1 and 2, from 1 and 2, you find that 2 times E into A is sigma A by epsilon. So what happens? A gets cancelled. So electric intensity or electric field at point P is equal to sigma by 2 epsilon naught due to this charged metal sheet. Vectorially, it may be written as vector E equals sigma by 2 epsilon naught into n cap, where n cap is a unit vector in the direction of the electric field at point P. So this is the second application of Gauss law. Next is, we have to move on to the last application of Gauss law, that is electric intensity due to uniformly charged spherical shell. Electric field due to a uniformly charged spherical shell. we will consider a spherical shell here. Let us say the radius of this spherical shell is equal to r. O is the center of the spherical shell. It's a charged spherical shell. Let us say it is charged with a charge of plus q. You know that in a uniformly shaped conductor, the distribution of charges will also be uniform over the surface of the conductor. Now, we will consider a point P here at a distance r from the center of the sphere, where we want to know the electric field due to this charged sphere. So, now we will have to consider a Gaussian surface. In this case, Gaussian surface would be a sphere. So, what is a Gaussian surface? Again, any surface to which Gauss law is applicable. So, if I consider a spherical Gaussian surface of radius equal to r, such that the point P lies on the face of the Gaussian surface, I would write down a sphere here. Like this, the radius of the sphere is equal to r. So, the electric field at point P due to this charged spherical conductor would be along this direction, that is along the normal to the surface. So, this is the direction of the normal to the Gaussian surface, and this is the direction of the electric field. That means theta between the electric field and the normal to the surface is 0. So, from the definition of electric flux, we know that phi is sigma vector E dot ds. But in this case, theta is equal to 0 degree, and ds is the surface area of the sphere, which is equal to 4 pi r square, where r is the radius of the Gaussian surface. So, you may write that phi is equal to E into 4 pi r square. Let me call this as equation 1. Now, from Gauss law, we know that phi is 1 by epsilon naught times sigma q. So, phi is equal to 1 by epsilon naught times, we know that the charge on the sphere is equal to q. So, from 1 and 2, from 1 and 2, see, comparing these two equations, LHS is same, so RHS may be equated. So, from 1 and 2, you may write that E into 4 pi r square is 1 by epsilon naught times q. Or, since we want E is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, just I have taken 4 pi here, into q by r square. Of course, to write it vectorially, you can include a unit vector which will be along the direction of the electric field at the referral point. So, the electric field at point P due to this charged spherical shell is given by 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into q by r square into n cap. So, remember here that this is also the expression that we had got for electric field at a point due to a point charge. That means a charged spherical shell behaves similar to a point charge, that we have to understand. Now, we will consider a subdivision here, wherein point P is on the charged shell. If point P is on the charged shell, that means the point P, instead of being here, if it is here itself, so then you know that the radius of the sphere is equal to r. So, in this expression, you have to just replace Everything will be the same except for the distance r. This small r will be replaced by capital R. So this will be the expression for the electric field at a point P on the spherical shell, charged spherical shell. Now, if the point P inside the shell, see like this, if the point P is within here somewhere like this, so what will be the expression? In fact, E will be equal to 0, because inside the shell you know that Q is equal to 0. So Q becomes 0, so E also becomes 0. So we have discussed about the electric field due to a uniformly charged spherical shell. We considered a charged spherical shell of radius r, a charge plus Q is distributed over the surface of the sphere. The electric flux is given by, see, in fact first we are interested in calculating the electric field at point P, which is at a distance small r from the center of the sphere. So we assumed a Gaussian surface sphere here of radius equal to r, such that the point P is on the surface of the Gaussian surface. So at point P the electric field is along the normal to the Gaussian surface. That means the angle between E and ds would be 0 at point P. So phi is sigma E dot ds. This is from the definition of electric flux. Theta is 0 here. So you know that it is E cos theta into ds. Cos 0 is 1. ds is the surface area of the Gaussian surface, which is 4 pi r square. So phi may be written as E into 4 pi r square. This is equation 1. Then from Gauss law, phi is equal to 1 by epsilon naught times sigma q. Phi is 1 by epsilon naught times q, that is the charge on the sphere. So from these two equations we can equate RHS. E into 4 pi r square is 1 by epsilon naught times q. So E is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into q by r square into n cap. What is n cap? Unit vector in the direction of the electric field. We considered a special case here. If the point P is on the charged shell, as we considered here, then nothing else, everything will be the same except for the distance from the center. It will be equal to the radius of the sphere, which is capital R. So I have to just replace small r by capital R in this expression. E is 1 by 4 pi epsilon into q by r square. On the other hand, if the point P is inside the shell, the electric intensity will be 0, because you know that charges always reside on the outer surface of the conductor. Hence Q will be 0 inside the conductor. Hence electric field will also be 0. Students, with this we come to the end of this chapter. Once we will recall whatever we have discussed in this chapter. In fact, we started with the charge. We learnt about charge, the definition of charge, a basic property of matter due to which it repels its own kind and attracts its opposite kind. We listed down the properties of charges. If I remember rightly, we had listed down about 9 or 10 properties of charges. Then we also learnt as to what you mean by electrification. The process of making a body to gain or lose electrons is what is called as electrification. We learned about 3 methods of electrification, that is charging by friction, charging by conduction and charging by induction. Then we also learnt about Coulomb's inverse square law, a very important part of this chapter, which tells you about the electrical force acting between the two charges. We represented it mathematically, the force acting between the two charges, where in the concept of permittivity was also introduced. Then we also represented the force acting between the two charges in vectorial form, then in terms of position vectors. Also we learnt about limitations of Coulomb's inverse square law. We learnt about principle of superposition, how to apply principle of superposition in case of the force acting on a charge due to many number of other charges surrounding it. Then we defined relative permittivity in terms of the force acting between the two charges. Then we considered electric field. We learned what is an electric field, electric intensity. Then we derived an expression for electric intensity at a point due to a point charge. We also learned as to what is an dipole, electric dipole. Then their dipole moment. Then we derived expression for electric field or electric intensity at a point due to an electric dipole in two cases. One was along the axial line of the dipole and the other one was along the perpendicular bisector of the axial line of the dipole. Then we learnt about the torque acting on a dipole when placed in a uniform electric field. Also we learnt how would a dipole behave when placed in a non-uniform electric field. Then we also learnt about principle of superposition in case of electric field. Later on we learnt about electric line of force, a concept introduced by Michael Faraday. An electric line of force is an imaginary line drawn in the path of a unit positive charge kept at a point in an electric field. Then we also learned how to sketch electric lines of force due to an isolated positive charge, isolated negative charge, a pair of unlike charges and a pair of like charges. Then we listed down the properties of electric lines of force. I think we discussed about electric flux. Then definition of electric flux, how to calculate electric flux. Then also we learnt about Gauss law, a very important one. The total electric flux over an enclosed surface is equal to 1 by epsilon naught times the total charge enclosed by the surface. Then applications of Gauss law, wherein we learned three applications: electric field at a point due to a charged thin infinite wire, then electric field at a point due to a charged infinite metal sheet, then electric field due to uniformly charged spherical shell. Okay, with this we come to the end of the chapter, students. From the next session we will discuss few numericals. For 1 or 2 sessions we will discuss about numericals. Then you will have the test. As I have already told you, get ready for the test. Already I have posted the notes in the WhatsApp group. Get ready with it. Thank you.